Welcome to On the Road with Al and Ivy. My name is Al Handler, presenting literary essays, classic book talk, and humor from my works on Bella, Kindle Unlimited, and my blog on X.
Jack London's Star Rover, and thoughts on the subject of mental illness. These days, Jack London is mainly known as an adventure writer, whose most famous books, called The Wild and White Fang, are considered children's or young adult classics. He was very popular in his time, and wrote several books that are considered classic. One part of his catalog that's become better known in the digital age are the books describe some sort of his early science fiction, which is sort of true. However, describing the works as metaphysical might be more accurate. My favorite London work in that genre, The Jacket, also known as The Star Rover, is a fascinating psychological novel involving a prisoner who escapes torture by disassociating into what he believes are memories of past lives. London went all in with this psychological concept and didn't label it as a descent into madness or fantasy. The prisoner connected with past lives, and unlike some modern stories that portray glorious and successful adventures, he recalled a variety with vastly different outcomes, which was in line with London's life experience in environments where many a life was cut short by fate or failure. London was a superb short story writer. That was probably his forte, and because of that, the various past lives are told in masterful detail. Even more impressive, each episode accurately reflects the mentality of each era. Each is a superb short story. What can be overlooked is how good the psychological detail was. The various prison characters are seen as personality types, each played or manipulated in a certain way by the prisoner. In other words, each didn't just do this or that, but also had psychological traits, motives, and goals. The process the prisoner used to disassociate from physical pain is described in detail. That's something the author would have been familiar with in real life. London's true life adventures often involved experiencing various forms of deprivation like extreme cold or starvation, and that gave him insight into the thoughts and sensations that came from the slow starvation of a prison diet and being strapped into a jacket designed to inflict pain. The book is a visionary series of passages about mind over matter that was echoed in later works of art. One notable example is in an episode of the modern crime drama Criminal Minds, where one of the agents is tortured to force him to reveal information. The torturers are puzzled by his apparent indifference to pain until the head villain realizes that the agent has successfully disassociated into the past, and a psychological chess game begins to try to bring him back into the present. Disassociation is now a familiar idea or belief, but back when London wrote the book, the characters calling the prisoner crazy might have been drawn from real-life skeptics that he had run into. In Star Rover, the warden and his assistants are depicted as cruel, but of the normal world. They have no idea of what was going on and could not see past what they thought was reality. They see the Star Rover's behavior under torture as insane or simply weird. One of the other themes is sanity and what a core personality is. In other words, inside that mix of physical and psychological actions was a person who came to see himself as a consciousness that would survive everything that was happening. London didn't create a story with sane people dealing with the insane. He took a more metaphysical view in creating a mix of personalities and behaviors and left the judgment of who was sane to the reader. That a character would visit past lives wouldn't have been abstract, at least to him. In his life, he'd encountered a wide variety of cultures, and as a writer observed that many people had spiritual beliefs that weren't common in Western culture, such as reincarnation. The Star Rover's escape into the past was viewed as a mystery by the prison staff, who reacted to his unearthly calm with fear and anger. It was a microcosm of how humanity has often treated the strange and unorthodox. In most cases, we are talking about mental illness. Most people know that historically the definition of mental illness has differed over time, and that the treatment could be brutal. The supposedly normal people who hanged or burned women as witches to save their souls were certainly not normal by modern standards, though some try to explain it as ignorance. Calling it ignorance obscures the real issue, which is that the concept of sanity is often defined by a majority rule or those in power. Blaming witch hunts on religion isn't entirely accurate either, as women who didn't fit the norm were persecuted or punished well before Christianity. For example, punishing a woman for adultery goes back to ancient times, or as soon as men decided they were property. The mentality of attacking or punishing the unorthodox is a human trait that has always been around, and probably always will be. For example, we live in an era where people want to opposing ends of the political spectrum take things past simple disagreement on issues and assert that the other side has a mental condition, or label people as sociopaths, or whatever based on what they've read in the news. Society, or even smaller segments like peer groups, decide which behaviors are normal for religious or political reasons, and one can't automatically assume the standard will be fair. One constant is that sanity tends to be determined by majority rule, not by doctors or leaders, but by what the majority agrees with or thinks is normal. Mental illness still has a stigma, much of it based on fear. It's still a mysterious subject, as there's generally no obvious cause and effect like the flu, or any seemingly odd behavior can be unsettling. The Star Rover finally succumbs to the extended torture and starvation, but finds an inner peace before dying that wouldn't have been out of place in a modern novel. London's book had no heroes or villains. It's a great story that looked at mental illness and psychology from a neutral point of view that left judgment up to the reader. A great writer puts a lot of trust in the audience and doesn't feel the need to label everything. London's ability to be objective is what turns this entertaining book into a great one.
You've been listening to On the Road with Al and I, a collection of literary essays, classic book talk, and humor from the works of Al Handa on Bella, X, and Kindle Unlimited. Let's close with some music by McGraw. Thank you for listening.